Hey guys, Alex here, ajnashville.com, here again with Mr. Greg Pihs.
I'm excited to be back. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. And it's amazing that you're able to make it here today. You know, one thing we were talking about a little bit before the show is how busy things are for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been a lot recently, and it seems like everyone is definitely in it, and it's definitely a good thing. But it seems like everyone has a lot on their plate currently.
Well, and the thing is too is, you know, we spoke about this earlier as well. There's a difference from being busy because you just feel busy and it being actually busy. You know, there's people, let's say loan officers, for example, instead of doing 2 loans a month, right now they're doing 5. And so they're like, oh my God, I'm so busy. That mental process is that they're busy because I know people that are doing 25 a month, you know?
Right.
So is their life any busier, or have they found systems and balances and things like that to allow them to efficiently roll forward and maintain the busyness while maintaining I guess kind of a peaceful chaos, so to speak.
No,
if that even makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it has to be that. Even when you say that, I have to think to myself. I have to evaluate myself and be suspect of my own self. Of what do I think is busy, and oh wait, what are my big picture goals?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, I can't be busy if I'm going to actually be able to. If I see myself attaining something bigger,
Right.
You know, I do have to figure out those systems.
And I think some of that too is gaugeable based on previous, well, at least for me. I mean, you don't have the previous years of, hey, this is where I was at. Here's where I'm gauging it from. Am I actually busy?
Yeah.
Whereas I have years in this industry, and I can look and be like, I'm
You
way
know you're
busier.
busy for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
where I'm
yeah.
like, where I'm gauging, I'm like, there's no question about it. You know, with you being new in the industry, that's something. If somebody was to step back and to listen to the way you talk about your industry and how passionate you are, they would never guess that you're quote unquote new. You know, and that's one thing to me. New is a subjective thing when it comes to you have people that have been in the industry for 30 years, but they've restarted 30 times,
Right,
and they don't have 30 years of experience because in that 30-year period they may have closed 15 deals, and then you have people that have been in the industry for 6 months and they've closed 15 deals.
Right.
So at that point, who's really busy? Who's new?
Right,
You know,
right.
Are you new because the amount of deals or the amount of time?
Yeah.
This
No,
isn't
absolutely.
prison. It's not like, hey, you're here, you've got 1 year knocked out of 30, you know, you're just spending time. This is something that it's very relative to the amount of deals you close and experiences. Because as you know, and we know this as a whole, because we've done so many deals together, every deal is different.
Every deal, man.
You know.
And you know, it's really been a blessing just making sure myself, what we're just tagging on what you talk about. I've had so many takeaways on every deal, and
Right.
and each one has definitely helped me parlay a win in the next deal with
Yeah.
each takeaway for sure.
Well, and that's the evolving lesson. You know, I've done this. I couldn't even tell you how many deals that I've closed in my career. I should at some point have kept track,
Yeah.
right? But I don't have enough. I don't have a big enough table to put that many notches in. But you're right. Every single one is different in its own way. You know, we have clients approach us all the time. They're like, "Hey, this is what I want to do. Is this going to be easy? Is it that?" And you're like, "No, I can't answer that question."
So,
you
what
know?
do you think about? What are your thoughts, or what? I definitely want to with today's topic of being busy or the false belief of balance. What do you think about balance? I mean, let me put something on you. I mean, I read something one time. I forget which book it was, but that essentially it painted the picture that balance is an equal imbalance, kind of like a seesaw.
Yeah.
So instead of like we don't get 50% of work time and 50% of family time, instead maybe it's 75-25 right now, and then later
Right.
on make sure I rebalance it at 75-25 the other way. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's really good that you put it that way because that's something that most of us don't think about. We say the word balance, and balance to most people means 50-50.
Equal, but
You know?
equal such a falsehood. I mean,
It is.
the way I'm sorry, I cut you off, man. Someone presented me sometime, you know, if you had a broke leg and the guy next to you had a headache, and I gave you both an aspirin, that would be equal.
Right.
But it's not fair. But
Right.
it's kind of like taking that balance at some level is an equal imbalance in some place.
Yeah, I mean, you apply pressure where the pain needs it. You know, you apply, I guess, in your analogy, hey, the aspirin's not going to work for the person with a broken leg. The severity of the pain is relative to the injury, so to speak. And so when you take a situation where, you know, hey, maybe my business is flooding my personal life right now. Mm-hmm. But in order to achieve a point of success to where that balance seesaws back, I have to pay attention to the business to acquire the clients to build future business with less work.
I agree with that. I mean, I align with that. I'll put it that way, and then making sure, having the own personal integrity and the moral compass that I have. Don't. It's my suggestion. Let's not, when we get in that position, make excuses to our family.
Right.
Or we try to say we're busy as if we're important. The fact of the
Right.
matter is we are failing our family at this moment, and it's for a greater picture in the future.
Right.
So aligning with them that, hey, I do owe you guys some kickback on time, and I'm going to make sure that I get that once this law's out.
Yeah. No, and that's a big thing. A lot of us, that's the first thing to sacrifice. The kids, hey, I want to play a game. And you're like, I'm busy right now. I've got to get this done. I'm working. I'm doing this. And it's easy to shrug off, and it's hard to put yourselves in their shoes and
Right.
look and be like, what, that was important to him or her. That was relative. Like my son yesterday, he comes up and gives me this trophy he made, and it says #1 dad on it, and he made this trophy at school. 2 cups, glued together and little handles on the side. I mean, it was really cool. But it was so important to him. When I walked in the door, he's like, Dad, 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 Dad. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then when I stopped and saw what it was that was so important to him, I was like, God, I'm such an asshole.
And it meant, I'm sure it meant so much to him. I mean, that's what he
Yeah.
needed. He needed that small piece of attention.
Exactly. And I mean, it meant the world to me, too, because it was something so important to him. I was able to analyze that.
What do you think about, I just kind of had this thought right now that, we're saying we're busy we're almost wearing it as a badge of honor.
Right. It's a puff your chest out,
Yeah, I'm busy.
getting big in the club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing is, when people ask, when general people out there, you run into someone you haven't seen in a while and they say, how's business? You say, oh, man, I'm busy. I'm busier than I can be, or whatever the case may be. I agree with you 100%. It's almost like having a merit badge. Like you're in a Boy Scouts and like, here's your merit badge for being so
I got
busy.
my busy badge.
Right, exactly. Go ahead and put that, what is it, your sash? Sew it right on front and center on your sash. So I think the concept of it, once again, is relative to the individual, because what I think earlier in my years in the mortgage industry of what I considered busy is far, far different than what it is now. And a lot of that's because putting systems in place and putting expectations together and putting a thought process together to handle everything that I've experienced before. And I say, hey, instead of doing this, we can do that.
That's a really good point that, and I'm doing my best to make sure I'm taking notes through this experience right now. But when we are busy, when we are truly busy, when it's getting to be a bit much, that is the very moment where we need to take notes on what systems do we need. The covers were pulled up and it was blatantly showed to us where we need systems when we're that busy. And I think it's important. I mean, you said it yourself. Obviously, you've evolved at that level that once upon a time you were busy and maybe like a chicken with a head cut off, but now you have so many systems. You're busy now is productive.
Yeah. Well, and one of the key things is simply writing things down, I've heard this countless times, and I hear this a lot from military people, officers especially, that never go anywhere without a notebook. You never know when you have to write something down. You've always got a notebook. I've always got paper within my reach somewhere.
We both have it in front of us right now.
When I came to the meeting with Rich from the Rap Lab the other day, I had a notebook with me.
Yep.
Why? Because you may get sidetracked, but need to jot something down for later. I may get a call and be like, oh, shoot, I got to call this person back. Well, I'm in that meeting, but I've got a note now because as a human being, you can only departments. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, there you go.
Compartmentalize. Yeah, obviously.
So much. And then walk away and still gain that value from it. So if I'm sitting here trying to absorb 100% of everything you say and I get distracted with my phone ringing or a text message or something like that and have no way to jot it down, it's not going to work. And as individuals, when we talk about being busy, we have to do things like turn around and say, Alexa, set a reminder for me to call Greg back at noon tomorrow.
Right.
That's my virtual notebook in the case where I'm at home because that'll set a reminder in my calendar and everything else.
I heard I did a little while back. I did some training with Sean, and I may say his name wrong, Kokosva maybe or Kokosva. But I like what he said that a lot of times when we're busy, it's not because we have too many things to do. It's because we're doing too many things.
Yeah.
And it made me think about when you said writing it down, committing to what's not getting done right now.
Right.
Stop chasing every rabbit hole.
Right.
Maybe put it on a piece of paper and time blocking's huge. Not that that's the end all say all.
Right.
But determining what's not getting done as well.
One of the greatest things I ever heard, and I'm guilty of not applying this to what I do, is the night prior, write down the 6 most important things you need to accomplish the next day.
And that's so huge.
And it's the number one things, like this is non-negotiable. I'm going to go to the office. These are the 6 things I'm going to do. Nothing else is getting done until I do these. And I don't do those, and I should. And that's one of those things I look at it now and I'm like, why aren't I doing that?
Well, I definitely don't do it enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, but man, it's so you go to. I've done it myself and literally said, okay, I'm going to do these, and then okay, I got to write this down before I go to bed. Oh, it'll be okay. I'll get it in the morning.
Right.
And then
Right.
and then when we get up in the morning, we rationalize while we are too busy to get them done.
Yeah.
When we put them on the list, you wake up in the morning, you commit to them, you start with them, you knock them down.
Well, and that's an integrity thing.
Absolutely.
Because if it's on your list, you have to have the integrity to say, I committed to that. I need to do
I
that.
have to do it.
But there's so many people that it's like, you know what? Maybe I don't. Maybe last night that was important, but today it's not. The other thing, and here's, for me, this is my biggest tip. And I'm guilty of doing this sometimes, but I'm getting better at not doing it as much. And you and I, this has been something that you and I do together that I think has built that thought. And that's, instead of me just calling you, I say, hey, you got a second for a call? And you actually were the one that initiated that. And I looked at that, I was like, holy shit, he respects my time, because when you're working with 40 or 50 clients like we are this month, I'm in a situation where 40 or 50 people think their loan is the most important loan in the world.
Yeah.
So the phone rings nonstop. And if I stopped and answered every single call that came through, nowhere, exactly. So what you have to do is say, this is what's important right now. This has my undivided attention. This phone can ring and it can rack up people that have called, and I'm going to write those people down and I'll call them all back.
I find you've hit the nail on the head, and I find that when for people that may feel maybe don't want to tell someone that, hey, you can't have my time right now. I have other things going on, or that I wasn't able to answer the phone. One thing I do when I'm with clients first, and you said it earlier, setting expectations. That's so huge. So when I first meet with clients, at the end of that first meeting, I share with them that text would be best. Mm-hmm. Phone calls are fully okay, and that sometimes they may call and I may not answer for a couple hours, and I go right into the example that I've been with you guys for X amount of time and you haven't seen me with my phone.
Right.
That's the only reason why.
Right.
So it's almost, that give and take of like, hey, you might not be able to get me on the phone. People don't want to say that because, hey, we got to be available, but the immediate follow-up of is when we get on the phone, no one else gets your time.
Right.
And there's an immediate respect for that, I believe.
And that goes deeper too. And this is a concept I picked up, year and a half, 2 years ago. And it wasn't really a concept. It was something I saw demonstrated. I'm like, I'm going to adopt that. And that's when we have meetings with each other, what do we typically do? As human beings, we'll show up. And if we're sitting at a table at a restaurant or something, we take our phone and out of respect, what do? Face down. And we set it down. But it's still on the table.
Correct.
Which tells the person across from you that there's something that could happen with that device right there that could divide your attention.
That's powerful.
And then we're guilty of this. And I was really guilty of this. The only reason why I bought an Apple Watch initially is so when I sat in my meetings, I could glance to see who's calling or see who's text
I've
messaging.
never done that.
Exactly. But what I would do is I'd say, hey, I got to use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And I would go to the lobby and accept the call. So now what I do, and obviously both of us are guilty of it here, but this isn't a formal meeting like what I would normally compare this to, but we both have our phones on the table, okay? Under normal circumstances, if I'm going somewhere to meet you and this is a business meeting and it's serious, phone's not even probably coming out of the car,
That's strong.
Because I don't need to, for one, have separation of your time. If I've got an hour of your time, I got to make the most of it. For two, I don't want to be walking away in a rush to respond back to everybody else.
Forget what
as we're walking away. No, as we're separating. Because here's the thing, like you meet somebody and if the conversation goes well and the lunch goes well and you see eye to eye, that separation and planning what you're doing next is very important. So as you're walking away and you say, hey, Greg, hey, man, you know what? Today, lunch went awesome. I'd love to get together with you again. I'm going to fire you an email, tonight, recapping kind of what we talked about. We're going to set an appointment in the future to get together and sit down and have that podcast that we discussed during lunch. And maybe I jot that down in my notebook that I brought with me.
And
then get in the car and then recap all that information. There's not that distraction where I pick up my phone and say, hey, let's talk about it. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's text. And so I'm responding as I'm glancing up at you, looking at you as I'm responding to this text message. And as human beings, that's what we do.
100%. Yeah. No, that's powerful. I have some takeaway notes from what you just said there myself.
It's just one of the things that I feel separate people. And so because I have seen it and now I have adopted it, I notice if other people do it. Because once again, do you respect my time?
Correct.
We would never meet with an attorney or someone like that we're paying monetarily and say, hey, hold on a second, Mr. Attorney, I've got to take this call real quick. We'd never do that. Why?
Right.
Because there's a value to their time.
Yep.
So why do we value professionals of some degree, but not professionals of others?
Well, first and foremost, yes. And then the other piece, I have to pawn the professionals. Were you respecting your time first? Were you respecting their time secondly? And then they'll respect your time.
Right.
Because I mean, if I were to come, so anytime I've came to your office, first and foremost, you don't even answer the door even if I knock. No, seriously. But you have staff in the office that do answer the door, that do greet me, and then they tell me, hey, you can go back there. His door's open, which your door's always been open, and I go back there, and you're face deep in 3 different computer screens working a deal. I mean, I have to wait a minute. But if I came in and you were kicked up on Facebook on your phone, I may not respect your time as much because you weren't respecting your time.
Right. Well, and that's a very valid point. There's a couple reasons behind that. Like you said, when you come in, like I'm working. I'm getting stuff done. And yes, we're wrapping up. And yes, I'm making time for you. And yes, I know you're there. And I'll say, what's up when I see you walk in or something like that. But if I abruptly cut what I'm doing, it's very easy to forget where I left off, which creates chaos. And when we talk about being busy like we are, you and I have been together for about 2 hours today. I can't remember the last client I was working on at this point. But you saw what I did. I said, hold on a second, I'm almost done here. Finished it up, and then we were good to go. Once that was done, I turned and said, all right, now it's our time.
Pivot into this.
Right. And what's good is you and I are usually, it's scheduled. Everything's scheduled. I sent you my calendar the other day. I said, hey, let's do a podcast together. It wasn't wavering back and forth. It was like, here's my calendar.
Figure out a time.
Here it is. Here's the time block. Let's block it out. Boom. And that's what we did. And that's one of the other things. I want to talk about being busy, utilizing my calendar and sharing that with individuals that want to use up some of that time has been one of the best things I've done.
I tell you, on my end, it's definitely of a lot of value. Even on now, while we're on time, I love talking about time. Time is our greatest value. Most people would. I don't think most people would. Most people would align with it, and I don't think they would oppose to that. But I'm not sure if they understand the depth of that.
Right.
But when we talk about time, even you sending me your calendar protects my time that I don't have to do 3 text messages back and forth with you.
Yep. Well, and you don't rely on me because the calendar automatically messages you. It says, hey, by the way, don't forget, you got an appointment at this time. It sets a reminder in our calendars. It sets a reminder. Alexa will pop up and say, hey, 2:30, Greg Pihs, podcast. It simplifies things. And then I know that, hey, I can't meet with you at 2:30 because I'm meeting with Greg Pihs. And so the next person that steps in and says, I really need to talk to you, I say, great, here's my calendar. Because here's the one thing I know. We'll set an appointment with a doctor to be there at 9:30, to not see him or her until 9:45, sometimes even 10 o'clock, sometimes even later.
Absolutely.
But we're accustomed to getting on their schedule. And why is that? Well, we're on their schedule because we don't have any other choice. You want to see the doctor, you have to fill out a thing on their schedule. Guess what? Doctors, lawyers, the list goes on. Doctors, lawyers, realtors, loan officers, like we're all high-level professionals. So why can't our time be just as valuable? Just think about the chaos if you said, hey, man, I'm going to be there at 2:30. And at 2:30, I had 3 other people standing there waiting to talk to me, and I was on the phone and everything. Yeah. At that point, you're going to walk in and say, dude, why am I wasting my time here?
Wasting my time.
So that slows down that chaos, and that helps synchronize things. And what I tell people is if I don't put it in my calendar, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
Not by choice. And now that discipline, one thing I try to do is always leave the office at 6 o'clock. No later, no earlier. 6 o'clock. And the reason is if I can't accomplish it by 6, it's not that important.
Yeah.
Emergencies will pop up, and that's okay. My son broke his collarbone today, and I stayed at the office. Now the thing was, I didn't have a choice to leave and go to the ER because they only allow one person in there. So what did I do? I'm like, well, I can fire down on this stuff. Shannon's taking care of it.
Absolutely.
What else am I going to do?
Well, yep.
I could have canceled my whole book.
Unless you're a doctor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to walk in and be like, hey, yeah,
I got this.
Bro. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, respecting that length of time, setting a schedule, prioritizing the 6 things on the piece of paper, the 6 most important things, and the proper expectation. You know what I tell clients? Because people are so quick, and it's because business is so sporadic for some people, and it's so rare for others. That if the client says jump, they're like, okay, when, where,
Right.
how high? Me, I tell my clients flat out, okay, as soon as you get me all your documentation and everything, expect a 24-hour turn time from that point. Why do I say that? Well, because now the pressure's on you. You can't call me and say, hey, I didn't hear from you. You didn't hear from me because you didn't submit all your stuff.
Right.
I can't review your application without pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, all the bits and pieces. So what are we doing? We standing here stroking each other?
Right.
Let me have your stuff and then I can make decisions. So when I started to set that expectation, I tell people, hey, I will get back to you 24 hours after this point. Or if you submit your application by noon tomorrow, I'll get back to you by the noon the following day. And if I need longer, then I'll say I'll get back to you by end of business. Why? Because then I set that realistic expectation.
Yeah, and that's huge expectations, and then also you have you obviously you just ratted it off. You have your system.
Yeah, exactly.
And systems and expectations, I feel like, is so powerful in every arena of business.
Right.
And lacking too. I mean, it's just it's hard, and so we make an excuse and we neglect it.
Yeah, that plays into our busyness though.
Absolutely.
That plays into. It's been said better than this, but basically what we typically have is like a peaceful chaos. And I can't remember how it's said. It's organized chaos. That's what I hear. People talk about organized chaos. And this is a kind of an example of that. There's so much going on, but the organization of that is what makes it to where it's manageable.
Absolutely.
And like you said, systems in place, people to do certain things. I'm not a graphic designer. What do? I outsource my graphic design work, and it's worth a certain dollar amount. You and I were talking about a book the other day, and that's something that you and I both agreed. We need to outsource this. Why? Because we don't have that talent to do that.
Not the proper use of your time.
Right. And so why try to be the jack of all trades? Let's just be a master at a couple.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of, the thought process with that, that's a maturity level too in any type of industry. If you realize, hey, I've got a weakness here, well, get someone to fix that.
Absolutely. Whether it's some things, definitely something. The way I heard it said was work your strengths and hire your weaknesses.
Yeah.
It can be said, however, some things are valuable to learn, and then you have to determine what is the value of learning that. Is there a value to my client? Is there a value to my family? Is there a value to my bank account? Mm-hmm. And if not, then we got to outsource it. And I know the first thought that most people come to is money. Well, I need money if I outsource. Well, you need to outsource if you want money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we talked about that with video, for example. It's easier for you to hire somebody that has the equipment, that has the knowledge, that has the time, that's their profession in order to record these high-quality videos versus you sitting down and figuring out how to use iMovie and Final Cut Pro and having to buy this and buy that and test all this stuff. Like, yes, it costs money, but how much is your time worth?
Absolutely.
And that's where it comes to a balance. Shannon wants this nice little design on the wall in our hallway. I'm like, cool, I'll find someone to put it on and I'll pay them to do it. Well, why don't you do it yourself? I'm like,
no. For
one, it'll take me hours to figure out a 47-degree cut,
Absolutely.
I can't do that. For two, it's not worth my time.
Well, and even when my mind went in this direction too when we look at, so we're talking about from a place of saying outsource, but even when you look at it at a place of professionals and a place of whatever that profession may be, someone could, I suppose at some level, whether they go through bad, I don't know how, but someone could secure their own land. Someone could buy their house without a realtor.
Right.
But why? Like you said, that 45 degree angle cut. It's we don't know those things.
Yeah.
We're going to have to buy 3 pieces of wood, maybe even buy the saw, watch 8 YouTube videos.
Yep.
We're burning time. We're wasting the wood. The 2 pieces we cut wrong. The third one's close.
Yeah.
But there's someone that
Gotta
knows
it.
but there's people that is their expertise. And then you're also talking about quality.
Right.
And then again, with your level of integrity that you were to try in your mind at some level, not you personally, but as humans in our mind that we saved $3, but at the risk of quality, what was the integrity in that?
Right. Well, and the other thing, too, you brought up buying houses. There's so many intricate pieces in a contract. In a TAR contract, there's so many different sections that if you screw up
oh my gosh.
and you write that differently, you are subjecting yourself to potential lawsuits and mitigation. So, yes, you save $20 now, but you may cost yourself thousands of dollars down the road.
More.
There's some things. Here's what I tell people. Would you go to court tomorrow for a murder charge and go unrepresented?
Absolutely not.
And any sane person, mind you, when I say this, sane person would say no. What would you do? I'd find the best person I can find. How much would your budget be? Unlimited. I'd find a way to get it. Okay, then why are you shortchanging yourselves when it has to do with selling your home, buying your home, financing your home?
Absolutely.
You know, and the answer when people are asked that, they're like, I wouldn't, but you are. That's the thing.
Yeah, no.
You literally called me and said, I'm going to call Quicken and I'm going to call this other place, which those places are great in their own way.
Right,
but
right.
are they going to be able to accomplish the same thing at the high capacity that we can?
And absolutely not.
And it's just like you and I were talking about the book thing. And my thought process on the book thing was, bro, why don't you go this cheaper route and spend this amount of money versus that amount of money? And then when I sat down and thought about it, I'm like, oh, he's trying to produce a better product than X was,
Right, right.
And so it started to make sense.
Well, and again, I tie back. Our big pieces today is busy and time, but I tie back into money because again, people always think about money, but
I mean, here's the thing. You talk about money. Money's valuable. There's no question about that. And money's not something that we can just go out and just make it rain amongst the industry. So you have to be conscious of time versus money to a degree.
Well, and then also making yourself responsible. As soon as we say mentally, as soon as we declare, me and my wife, we've been together for maybe I think like 8.5 years, and earlier on we looked at some houses that were maybe around $350,000, and
Right.
my wife said we can't afford that.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I looked at my wife then, this was 8.5 years ago, and I had just begun my reading and financial literacy, and I only know a little bit now 8 years later, but I looked at my wife and I said, we can't afford it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as I don't currently have the funds for that.
Right. How
As
can we get it?
As soon as you said I can't afford that, you planted the seed in your subconscious mind that I am not responsible for making this happen because
Yep.
I can't.
Yep.
So when we look at money, we're like, well, how do I get the money? There's a whole bunch of ways. I'm not exactly sure, but don't say
Right.
can't.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Robert Kiyosaki talks about that. He talks about rich dad, poor dad, and he talks about the rich dad, whereas the poor dad said, we can't afford that. And the rich
Right.
dad said, how can we afford it? And here's the thing. We're not necessarily talking about just monetary. You're talking about time. You're talking about effort. You're talking about talent. You're talking about growth. I think the first concept is, they're talking about money. No. Like, how can I afford to be in shape? Well, I can afford to be in shape by eating better, by working out, by running, by disciplining, by lifting weights. Like, that's me affording health.
What about time? So our big topic was time today. What about the person that is a little bit busier than they normally are? So they're like, I'm busy. Well, how could you ever afford via time to have this big dream that you talk about?
Right, if you're limiting yourself.
You said because you said I'm too busy right now. It's no different than when we financially say I can't afford that.
Right.
When we say I'm too busy, you have submitted to your subconscious mind that I can't do no more. I'm busy. I've done my best. I'm busy, and then your
Right.
subconscious mind takes it and runs with it.
But see, I think as individuals, and you and I both, we've read this book. I think we live our lives by the concept behind this book, and that's extreme ownership.
Absolutely.
And telling yourself, hey, guess what? I do have time. How do I know I have time? Because I spend 15 minutes every hour on Facebook.
Oh my gosh.
Or I spend 20 minutes doing something like this. And it's not that you don't have time. It's you haven't allocated your time appropriately. It's one thing I run into, and this is something I see a lot with agents that aren't successful. And what I ask them when they're like, hey, I'm getting out of the industry, I'm going to get a regular job, I'm going back. I'm like, hold on a second. You're going to quit what you're doing now and having the freedom you have now to go work somebody else's 40 hours, when if you applied 42 hours worth of work in the industry you're in, you're bound to be successful. You're bound to be successful. I can literally go out and swing a sign 40 hours a week and get at least one deal per month.
One deal per month, and you'd be doing
still
okay.
make money. Yeah, it'd still make money. So how are we allocating our time?
That's
what are
the
we
biggest
honestly doing with our time? What's from an integrity standpoint? Like, are we going down and this was something back in the day. You'd get a group of guys and girls and they'd go down and they'd smoke for 30 minutes. They'd be down at the, chit-chatting and they'd be down complaining and everything else. And they've wasted 30 minutes. Don't tell me you don't have time. It takes fucking 2 seconds to smoke a cigarette. You're down there smoking cigarettes for 30 minutes complaining about your job. You got time. You got 28 extra minutes you just wasted,
100%.
You don't have time, get up earlier.
Absolutely.
If you get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I know some people are like 4 or 5 in the morning. Yeah, 4 or 5 in the morning.
I do it every day.
And you get up and you're up before everybody else is doing stuff, you're going to get a lot done. You'll find yourself at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and be like, shit, I'm going to go home because I don't have nothing else to do.
It's crazy. It is. I tell my wife all the time. So before the real estate industry, I was in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And this doesn't account for, so I would get up roughly, say, like maybe 4 hours before I had to leave for work. And so some of that time was built in to get my meal prep done. Some of that time was built into, but an hour of time was not, it was white space, and then I got to do what I wanted with it.
Right.
So I would do a lot of, I would sit down and whatever was most important that day, I would dive into it. It's unreal by the time most people started their day, the level of accomplishment that I had. People literally were like, how did you get that done?
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, on days that I don't have to help get my kids ready for school and everything else, I'll usually leave the house pretty early and head to the office because I can bang everything out I need to bang out.
All the distractions are out of the way. The phone's not ringing because, hey, they're not up yet.
Exactly. Like I'm responding to emails at like 4:45, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're getting back to it at 9:30, and I'm like, hey, welcome to the club. Like this is a race, but I got a head start.
Absolutely.
And so once again, that falls into allocation of time, what we actually do with our time, and how much we value our time.
Well, and then another thing, willpower, and that has a lot of value. It's kind of a weak term because then we say, well, I don't have the willpower. You just chose not to exercise it.
Yeah.
But it does, as a whole, we go do something as a society, as a group, as humans, as a human being. We go do something, and then it's like we have to be rewarded with time off. Like we did something, like whatever that one something was.
Take a break.
The people that work 8 hours a day, let's suggest, or even I'm going to go in the restaurant industry, and it's to be clear, it's a hard industry. I don't mean any for people that work. It really is a hard industry.
Right.
But you look at some people working. Sometimes servers are working, and not everywhere. Okay, but I have experience. I can say I've seen it. They're working 4-hour shifts, leaving with $200 in their pocket, but they need the rest of the day off because that was a hard shift.
Yeah.
Like, dude, after that 4 hours, that's when your dream. That's when you really start to get the plug in for whatever else is going on.
Right.
But even in real estate, you worked a deal
real
or two.
estate's the worst.
Yeah.
Real estate's the worst, and here's why. I got a contract. I talked to 2 clients. I called a FSBO list for 30 minutes. Like, literally, bro, all you did was dial the fucking phone.
You just dialed the phone.
Right. You're not out there swinging a pickaxe.
Go again.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's the funny thing. Early days in the mortgage industry, we were responsible to make 200 or 300 dials a day, which to some people, they're like, oh, that's pretty easy. It's not, I promise you. Because not only are you making those dials, you're also having to spend quality time on the phone with the clients that actually pick up the phone. And some of that quality time may be F you, don't call me again. And some of that quality time may be I'm interested, tell me what you got. So it's all relative to what you're trying to do. But like you said, the goals, there was a point in time where I was like 3 deals. I'm gonna close 3 deals this month. And I was content. I'm like, I closed 3 deals. I made some money. I got my name on a wall. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Now it's like, bro, we only got 30 deals in the pipeline. We need to get some more deals.
We're
going out of business here. What the fuck's going on? You know? Or hey, we thought we were going to close $7 million this month, and we're only closing 6.5. What the hell happened?
Yeah.
And so as you raise the bar and put the systems in place and value your time and value others' times and do the things you need to do and act like a professional. Back when I was doing 3 deals, if my phone rang, I answered.
Yeah.
Period. It didn't matter who it was. It could have been the milkman. It could have been a bill collector. It could have been a client. If it rang, I answered. Now I look at my phone. I'm like, I can't take your call right now.
Right.
To the point where I'm sending people my schedule. And I'm like, hey, carve out a 15-minute block. We'll talk then.
Right.
A lot comes with that. So, and people, I think, have the fear that, well, if I don't take that call now, they're going to find someone else.
Right.
Good.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Absolutely. No. Well, and you got to look at, and people are running their business all different ways. And in this industry, some people are maybe, getting leads all different ways, and they're hoping that lead ties in.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if you're loving on people on a daily basis,
right.
Okay, if they call me and I don't answer my phone, if it's a super cold lead, okay, I guess, but are you building your business off of only cold leads? And some people out there maybe are, and
right.
they may be making way more money than me. That's fair.
Right.
But for everyone else, when you love on your sphere, you should not have a fear of one deal not wanting to work with you because you did not answer. A, your pipeline's big enough. B, you're not working with the right people. people.
Right.
When you have True North, there's 7 billion. I've probably said the same thing on your podcast before. I say it a lot. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and it would be super weird if all of them like Greg.
Yeah.
But a few of them like Greg.
Right.
And they'll wait for me to call back or whatever the case may be. And as
Yeah.
long as you post that True North and stay to that True North and have personal integrity, you shouldn't have to worry about that one deal and are you bending over backwards to try to make them feel a certain way.
And that's my favorite people. I get the text message. Hey, I was comparing rates with you and 3 other companies. Would you mind telling me what your 30-year fixed rate is? And I'm like, yeah, it's called fuck off.
Yeah, yeah.
Because unfortunately, I don't allocate time for that because here's the thing. You're going to work with me not only because I have great rates, but we are also going to close on time. We have great programs. You're going to deal with people that are sensible. You're going to deal with people that see you as a person.
You're also going to get to deal with people, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all
calling
just
a 1-800 number.
Right. You're not dialing a 5-digit extension every time you're having to reach somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a difference. You know, I get it. We all deserve low rates. We all want low rates. We all want this, and we have low rates. You know, let's face it. But what's important is we want people that value our time. That when everything is said and done, if I say, hey, we're going to get you in this home, that we mean it, you know, that it's not going to be, oh, hey, sorry, see you later. Best of luck to you and your family, you know.
Well, you know, again, we talk, and all tying back in, respecting your own personal time, when you're meeting with people.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right, though. Respect your own personal time. And that's the other thing, too. We're damn running out of time here. This is probably the longest podcast I've done in a while. But, and we'll wrap it up real quick. For those of you that are still hanging on, they're like, I got fucking time, too.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. When you start respecting your own time and treating your time as if it's valuable, just as valuable as your client's time who wants you to call them right then and there, when you start doing that, you set a level of professionalism and expectation.
Well, and how are you? You got to think to yourself. For those, some people are doing this. If you're telling, hey, call me anytime, and I'm always available.
Yeah.
I am not always available.
No.
Which we talked about. It goes back to expectations we talked about earlier. But again, respecting your time and displaying to other people.
Yeah.
If it's working, I mean, honestly, shoot me an email and school me a little bit.
Right.
But if you're telling people that I'm always available, call me anytime, I am not always available.
They're going to call you anytime too.
Absolutely. and furthermore, once you've built a relationship with a client, you may open that up to any time.
Yeah.
But if everyone could have any time, then how would you ever have any time?
Hey, I like that. And with that, we're going to close up this podcast because I can't think of a better way to say it.
That's awesome.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
Yeah. So if anyone can have any of your time, you're not going to have any time.
I love it. So
I appreciate being on here, Alex.
Yeah, no. Always a pleasure. Always a great thing. We'll have to get you on here again. Hopefully next week. You know, we'll make this a regular thing as long as you have time.
Yes.
You know?
But here's the thing. I have last one. We'll close that
I'm
off.
just looking at.
I have time. Guess what I have? I have 24 hours every single day, and if I schedule it properly, I can be here every Friday.
There you go. And hell, we'll even get it done before Friday, so I can upload it before. All right. Well, we want to thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I can't even talk. It's Friday. I hope everyone has a great and safe weekend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.